Welcome back everyone. In this video I show you how I make a coffee table, and this is not a project for a customer from us, it's just for ourselves. We were in need of a coffee table for the outside, and I didn't want to make one of those standard farmhouse coffee table that everyone has. And my wife found on the internet some an interesting design. It's a I don't even know how I would name it. It's a octagon coffee table in an octagon shape, and I thought, okay, that looks really cool. So let's make one. Here I grabbed just a few 2x6s that I picked up the other day, and I wasn't really sure how many boards I would need, so I just grabbed a few because I had no as always, I had no plan. I had just an idea in mind. And here I put those boards together that will end up obviously as the tabletop. And then I make some marks for the shape. And here's the thing: if you want to make something in an octagon shape and you do not really know the exact measurements, let me just show you a quick trick here. You obviously, as you can see here, get the middle of the board, the exact center. Mark the center, and then for those sides of the octagon, measure half of the diameter, and then measure or use the measurement of the half diameter and make a mark at each side, at each of the four sides of this square here. And then you just connect those marks as I do here, and you see you will end up in a perfect octagon. So if you ever want to make an octagon, nothing is easier than that. You don't even need to have a drawing, or you don't even need to make exact measurements. It's simple geometry. It's very easy. And of course I want the middle part, the legs, a little bit offset, so I make a few other marks here just because I don't want to do the math. And then I connect those marks again to make it more visible for myself and of course for you guys. Then I get a 2x4 just to give myself a vision of where those because those legs, those legs come in several parts, so that will be a top part of the legs and the bottom part, and this will also look like an octagon. And I want to make, or everyone wants to make it as easy as possible, so I make those marks to get the measurements. And here I cut those angles. And for an octagon, if you want to find out the angle, it's I can tell you now, it's always 22.5 degree. And if you have 8 parts or cut 22.5 degree on each side, you will end up with a perfect octagon again. And you might have noticed in this video already that I do not do a lot of planing or cutting. I just use the dimension the material gives me, because it will be fun for outside. So I don't even do a lot of sanding, because if you make something for outside, the dimensions, due to the seasonal movement, will always change a little bit. This is also why I do not use any glue, because I don't even have the perfect glue for outside projects. So I decided I just screw everything together. And here I cut those parts for the legs. I just use a few screws. I do not use any glue, as I mentioned, but the overall construction will be enough to hold everything together. If I would have a so-called nailer for corrugated nails, I think I would have used that or this tool to for the joints, but I don't have one, so I just screw everything together. And yeah, of course, those screws will be visible later, but I don't mind. Not only it's because for myself, but it's also, like I said, for the outside. And I expect, to be honest, for most of the screws to become loose over time or lose a little bit. So I want to have access to those screws so that I can rescrew them or tighten them again. And here also I use mostly pan head screws or flat head screws, because I think they, for this type of lumber, they hold a lot better than those countersink screws. Just my opinion. So here we are almost done with this part. And you see here, it is very simple. It's not complicated at all. The finished project, I think, looks a lot more complicated than it is. Of course, I give a little bit of sanding just to give it a little bit of a better surface, get rid of those marks from manufacturing, and also to get rid of some chip outs. So because I have kids at home, I do not want them to get a lot of slivers, so I just give it a light sanding here. So here you can see it is still loose. This tabletop is still loose, and I do wanna cut those corners off to get that octagon shape. I just use a pipe clamp here to clamp together, and then I use my circular saw to cut off those corners. Again, it is very easy to make. Of course, you want to use a good battery. Nothing's worse than in the middle of a project you have a dying battery, especially on a tool like a circular saw, because it slows down, and then you're just not making progress. Yeah, clean a little bit of the dust off a little bit. Okay, so the first part of the legs are getting screwed already to the tabletop. Again, I use panhead screws, and as I said before, I do expect that everything gets a little bit loose over time, but I think it's no problem. I can re-screw it later. If that would be a project for a customer, I think I would do things a little bit different, because not every customer is as handy with tools, and of course you do not it's not an expectation from a customer to do some fixes on something that you bought by yourself. You expect a perfect product. So yeah, I for customer project, I would have done things a little bit different. This is just a middle bar to reinforce everything a little bit, and also to make this tabletop a little bit tighter, so that we do not have too many or any loose parts. I put here on both sides a long extra screw. And I think it looks good so far. Now here we come to the legs, and for the legs I do a little bit of cutting and trimming, just because I do not have small material in stock, so I ended up with the leftovers, or some leftovers from other projects. This is here a few 2x6s that I trimmed down on my table saw, but it's also not a lot of work. You might have noticed already in other videos that I always use this folding ruler to measure the distance between fence and blade, and that's because I do not trust the scale on my saw. And the thing is, even different measurement devices like this folding rulers or tape measures, they can always be a little bit different. Depends on what quality it is. But for myself and for this table saw, I always measure with the same folding ruler. If it's not that important, I use sometimes other measurement devices, but if it's a kind of critical cut, then I always measure with a folding ruler and always with the same folding ruler, just to make sure that if I have to do repeatable cuts, that everything is the same size. And here I cut those angles for the legs. I do not sand the surfaces of those legs, just the corners, to around the corners a little bit and get rid of sharp edges. Okay, here we are now. We can attach those, or we can screw those legs on the tabletop. So this whole project, or the whole assembly part for this table is pretty much, I work pretty much upside down. I start with the tabletop, and then I work down to the legs. And so far, considering that this is first time ever that I made a table like this, I think it's the progress is pretty good. Had no problem so far at all. And the whole process of building, I think you can do it in less than a day. So here all the legs are done. Now comes the second part that I made off camera from this leg. So this ring that you have, where I screwed the tabletop on, I made a second one that goes under the legs, and then I screw everything together with pan head screws. I think for this whole project I only used, I think, 3 to 4 2x6s and 2 to 3 2x4s. So overall, it's not pricey. I think depends where you live. You can make this easily for I think between 50 and 60 bucks or so. So it's also a very cheap project. and it's, yeah, considering that it's that cheap, I think it looks really great. It looks fantastic, in my opinion. We really love that table. We used it already, and I think it's a great project even for beginners, in my opinion, because you do not have to do a lot of gluing. You just need pretty much just some basic tools that most of you, I guess, have. After I'm done with finished sanding, I got my wife again because I hate staining so much. I asked my wife if she could do the staining for me, and she did this, and I think she did a great job. And here you see all those different small surface, all those angles from where you have to hold the foam brush. I Yeah, I'm really glad that she did that because I would have hated it so much. I think we use some gel stain here, and but next time I think I would use, or my wife would use, some oil-based stain. Okay, here we are. Here it is. If you liked that video, please give me a thumbs up as always. Write a comment, that always helps with the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.